Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We have a special guest today, Kyle Grothues. I just found out how to say your name because it's weird. Sons of Liberty Gunworks, co-founder. Everybody knows Mike. He's been on the show before. And then, of course, you've got a new venture that we'll get into. But before we do that, let's talk about you.
All right, what do you want to know?
Who's your daddy and what does he do? That's wrong. That's Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah, I love that movie.
It is one of the best movies of all time.
It really is a
like
good
one of
movie.
the top 10 movies. I really want to show the kids probably when they're. I don't know. What do you think age appropriate for Kindergarten Cop is?
I was just thinking that too. My
Like
kids haven't
10
seen
maybe?
it. Yeah, my kids are 7 and 10. They're probably. I don't think the 7-year-old would get it, but the 10-year-old would probably get it.
That's the problem is getting it because a lot of the old classic, even Disney movies, for the 6 and 3-year-old just aren't registering yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to them yet. Which makes me wonder, did it make any fucking sense to us when we were watching it as kids, or was
Probably
it just
not.
like noise? Because they watch A Christmas Story, that makes sense. Because there's a
Got
story
some
arc.
for very adult themes in Christmas Story
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know. We'll figure it out, I guess. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Helotes, just outside San Antonio. So I've been in San Antonio most of my life. Now I live in Fair Oaks, close to Bernie, out that way. Went to high school there in San Antonio at Central Catholic, which is basically a cult, where everybody. I still hang out with high school friends, which most people don't. My wife thinks that's crazy. I still hang out with people from high school.
Pretty good cult then.
Yeah,
if
go
you're
to high
still
school.
hanging out
We have
with
the
people.
gala for donate money to school. We have the gala in a couple weeks. It's a thing. Mike went there. That's how I know Mike. He was 4 years ahead of me.
He seems like a cult guy. Well, he seems like a guy who escaped a cult.
As long as the cult doesn't have a lot of work involved, he's good.
Yeah, like
The busy work's not his thing.
Yeah, no, it's like he hates authority so much that you can see that he might have had some experience with somebody trying to control him early on.
Like we joined one. He got me into Fiesta's a big thing in San Antonio. So we joined another group called the Consejos that support Fiesta. And Mike's kind of stepped out of it because it's fun getting in and being exclusive. Like, hey, I earned my way in, but putting on a uniform and showing up to marching parades and like actually do things like not his thing. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't do any of that bullshit either. So what'd you do after high school?
So after high school, I went to Texas A&M Galveston. So stayed there. Was thinking about transferring to the main campus, but
What kind of ag can you do in Galveston?
not much, man. It was all so we're the only branch campus, but it's all ocean stuff. Every one of
Yeah.
our majors was ocean things. My major's in maritime admin, which is like running a port.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was in Navy RTC, and I bonded with my unit down there, so I stayed. I never transferred.
That actually makes a lot of sense, and probably better than an MBA, to be honest.
I have one of those too. Did that after.
Yeah.
Went in the Navy for a little bit, very briefly. Went to OCS, and then my back screwed up, so I got out of. I was supposed to be a backseater, supposed to be like Goose, and didn't work out. So I got out, and then at that point the Navy was really contracting, and a lot of friends that had gone in surface fleet were getting pushed out. So they were like, "Oh, you can stay here for a year, and maybe we'll find you a slot in the service fleet. Basically, you're going to be moving furniture for a year." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." So got out, got my MBA, was working for my family a little bit, and still am. I still run the family business. We
This is
own
a construction business? What is
lumberyard.
it?
Yeah, we own a lumberyard in San Antonio, Guadalupe Lumber, and then met Mike. We met through a mutual friend. That not our favorite person for either of us. He's a good enough guy, I guess. But he knew we both wanted to kind of do the same thing a little differently.
Yeah.
And linked us up, and we bootstrapped it, man. We had to sell it. We both sold. Luckily, I had 2 vehicles. I sold one of mine, and he sold his car. So we had our first employee drove him to work for the first year or so until he bought another one. But yeah, we had nothing. I had room in the lumberyard. We had a little bunker, so we. Under 3,000 square feet under another building, and no AC, no nothing.
Yeah.
Walls sweated during the summer. We just had to kind of make it work, and we did. It was rough at first, but we made it happen. So
Yeah, you need. It's interesting. We've done the same thing with all of our businesses. Right now with Hard AF, the booze company, we've paid for everything so far. And over the last year or so, we've taken some friends and family money, but for the most part, it's been just us. And I found that you need, like, one of the recipes for success, I guess you might say, is having a couple of different personality types with the same objective. Like somebody who's good at administrative shit, and then somebody who's good at deal making shit. If you can have both of those guys, you can start pretty much any kind of company. Yeah, I think
you gotta have like, there's always like three guys. They say, you gotta have the guy that's gonna make sure you honor your promises, you do what you're supposed to do. You got someone out there that really believes in the company and goes and speaks for it. And try to remember what the third one is. Financial person probably. You gotta have
at some point. Yeah, these days you could get a fractional CFO and make it work. But for the core group of people, you absolutely have to have an admin guy and a guy who can get.
Yeah, you have to have an ops guy that's going to run it, which is typically my thing. Like I said, I have an MBA, so that's we ran it by committee at first, but eventually I morphed into that role of CEO, and then finally I didn't even use the title for the first 7-8 years. I didn't start using that title until we were farther along, but running all the day-to-day, all the little pieces and stuff like that. And Mike's main job was to go out there and market and go on podcasts and do this sort of thing. And he's really good at it. I mean, he's very good at it till to this day.
Yeah, we have something similar to that here. Ross and I are both a little bit good at both of those things. I did marketing at Black Rifle, obviously, for a long time, so that part's easy for us. We're both media guys, so that's easy for us. The admin stuff, it depends on what it is. We kind of divide the labor there. But it would be a lot easier if one of us was really good at one of the things and the other one was really good at the other thing. Right now, it's just like it's a bit more. The division of labor is a little bit more hodgepodge because you have to put it together.
Yeah, and then you start stepping on each other's toes, and like you both try to handle the same thing. And
luckily we've got a good rhythm now, so that doesn't really happen anymore that much. But yeah, in the beginning, it takes a little getting used to for sure. What's it like I know starting a booze company is irritating as shit because you're dealing with the FDA and we have to get our formulas approved. They have to test it and make sure that the chemical compounds are correct, that the alcohol level is what we say it is.
Really, because I've developed a liquor before and they didn't really have to do any of that. But I guess for canned beverages, it's different.
Yeah, it's different, and you have to put like your ingredients on the back, which is weird. And
you have to test to make sure you have to know what all the ingredients are.
And then the licensing stuff, because it's gun. I don't know how the gun business works really, but in alcohol, every state has their own little cartel, and which you may have run into if you did some liquor. It's a pain in the ass. It's like
we'd have our label approved. Yeah, that was one thing where we, the guy that we were doing it with at Alamo Distilling there in San Antonio, little side quest project that kind of died on the vine because personal things with him. He had to keep his business running, and his wife got sick. So I was like, we came out, we did one run, that was it. I'd love to bring it back to life, but we had talked about it. Sons of Liberty, the name Sons of Liberty is on the label. But we couldn't put actual pictures of guns on the label because he thought that would cause a regulatory problem. Like they would, we didn't know for sure. We didn't try it, but they thought that'd be an issue. But it's called Green Dragon Bourbon, and we had some cool stuff. Like on the inside of the back label, we actually had a map of old time. 1776,
like the tavern.
Where the location was in Boston. It was really neat.
Yeah,
this is a great product. It's great bourbon actually. By mistake, almost we used his as a base spirit, and we're like, we're going to do a sherry finish, because I really like bourbon and Scotch, and sherry finishes usually come out pretty good.
That's what I like actually. Ardbeg Uigeadail is my favorite. It's my top 5 favorite Scotches. I like Scotch.
Ardbeg 19 is.
Yeah, Ardbeg 19 is good too, but I like the Uigeadail because it's finished in sherry cask. Yeah. So it's like they don't do anything really to filter any of the peat. They leave it all in, but they then finish it in sherry.
I'll have to try that.
So it's like it's like a Lafroig on the front end and then super sweet on the back end. It's very nice. I like it.
Yeah, I love the peaty stuff. Lagavulin, Bundahaven, like Bundahaven 18 is great. It's not super peaty, but
yeah.
But
have you had Yamazaki?
I have not. I'll have to try that.
Yamazaki 12 is probably I'm not kidding, the best single malt that exists. I've never personally had anything that was better than that.
I'll have to check that out.
That's my opinion. It's a Japanese whiskey. But anyways.
No, I know of it. Yeah, I just never. I may have had it over the years, but I've never owned a bottle of it. I'll have to find it.
Not a sponsor, by the way. You should be, Yamazaki. Send me free booze, you assholes. I'll send you some Hard AF. Not that I seriously doubt that people that drink Scotch are drinking Hard AF seltzer as well.
Yeah, like I don't really. I mean, no offense. I don't really drink a lot of seltzers.
So. Well, we're 8%, so. Here's the story.
Have to try it out. That's some serious. It is hard.
You can have one after we're done here. Yeah. So the story is Ross and I kept going to, and this is how all companies are born. It's solving some kind of problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We keep going to these college sporting events, and seltzer had gotten big, but most of the college stadiums were just transitioning into selling booze at all, and they didn't have hard alcohol at all. So they only had seltzers. It was like Truly and these other ones that are 4%. I'm like, I can drink this. I could drink a gallon of this and never get drunk. The problem with, and then you have to deal with the bathroom situation at a stadium.
Yeah, then you got diabetes and then all sorts of other problems.
It's like tailgate plus stadium plus having to piss every 25 minutes.
Speaking of that, have you ever looked at at A&M? A&M's number one this year in alcohol sales at their stadium, and the police, the College Station Police has like a Twitter feed where they basically roast all the people that they arrest during the game. Funny. Dude, it's hilarious. Like, arrested man, they like do it like real cop like, right? Like arrested man, BAC .23 found drinking wild turkey out of a Ziploc bag, whatever.
Oh boy,
crazy,
yeah.
Crazy
I mean, look,
stuff they find.
it's College Station, so who knows what the fuck goes on up there?
A lot of weird shit goes on for sure.
Yeah, but it's so. We were like, the solution to it at the time was the Power Claw. If you haven't heard of that, that's a White Claw. You take a sip out, you pour a shot of vodka in it.
Oh, that's smart.
It's like, all right, cool. And now I've got to carry two things. I only want to do one thing. So we just made it 8% booze. You know what I mean? But yeah, going to each state, you're dealing with an individual cartel, which means you have to follow all their dumbass rules. One of them, for most states, Texas is a little bit different. Technically, we could do it, but we don't want to spend the money. You could self-distribute in Texas.
Oh, really? I don't know.
Yeah, most states are that. We have a license for self-distribution, but you have to keep a facility, certain type of facility, and it has to meet certain requirements. And then you have to have
to go through distributor because we talked about that with the liquor thing. Yeah.
Now you can get a self-distribution license here, but you have to then we would have to have extra floor space to put all the shit in trucks. We're not doing all that.
No.
So every state, effectively, because we don't want to spend money on that infrastructure, you have to deal with a distributor, sometimes multiple in the same state because they only cover certain parts of the state, like Florida. Texas is one that's like that. California is one that's like that. And then it's $50,000 to get all that set up plus the license to sell in the state. Every single state we go to.
And one thing we ran into, at least we heard with, if we were trying to take our liquor big time, taking the distributors and stuff, it just never happened because, what went down with Alamo Distilling. But one thing we had heard too is that a lot of the distillers will lock in a contract for years. And if they don't, they fall out, at least on the liquor side. If they, they'll push your product for a year or two, and if they don't necessarily like it, like Glazers, for example, they don't, it's not their thing anymore. They're not going to release you from that contract, but they're never going to push it again. So it just dies on the vine,
right.
And they hold the rights to it for so long. So that's been a new,
and then you have to buy,
development.
Usually it costs like 20 to 30 grand to buy yourself out of those contracts, or you have to sit out of the state for a full calendar year and then reset, which kind of sucks if you're trying to grow your business.
It's a racket, man. Just the rules and the guns are weird, kind of like that too. You got distributors or you can go direct, but in booze it's distributor only. Like that's the only way to do it.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, you could self-distribute, but the only people who really do that are people that come in with a bunch of seed capital who are already rich. A lot
of money, man.
Right, because otherwise, who's got the money to? You're not bootstrapping infrastructure. That doesn't ever happen. Usually, you don't have any employees except for the owners for a while, right? Yeah. So speaking of guns, Sons of Liberty. What was it? You said you had a bunker space in the old construction business. How did that get started? Like, what was the first year of that like?
It was a wild first year. Like I said, we had to buy all the parts to build the whole gun. Nowadays we design all our own parts and have them manufactured. Back then we were using off-the-shelf parts. Rainier. Most of those first few guns, most of the parts came from Rainier Arms. They were a good partner. And it's funny later on down the line that he became a dealer. They flipped it the other way, and we still have a really good relation with John and those guys over there. But we had no employees. It was just me and Mike at the beginning, and then we had a guy named Dylan that just showed up one day and loved guns and wanted to learn. And we always joke about it, like he showed up and we didn't pay him, but he wouldn't leave. He just kept coming in every day. So we started teaching him how to build guns. And he still works with Sons of Liberty. He left for like 2 years, but he's the master armorer. He's the main armorer there, and he's been there since the beginning. And we had no AC, barely had, it was a lot of fighting. Me and Mike fought a lot the first couple of years. We finally, once we had more, it was less of a fight over resources. We started, getting along better, but, weren't paying ourselves. So it's kind of like, hey, stop using the company credit card for Redbox, that sort of stuff.
Well, Redbox doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. So
no, it existed back then, but not anymore. No, there's a lot of drinking the first couple of years. Yeah. I remember one where I was sitting in my office typing, and some guy walks in. He's like, "Hey, I'm looking for Mike." I'm like, well, he's here somewhere. He doesn't have, at that point, he didn't have his own car. Like, I brought him in. Like, he couldn't have left unless he walked off. And he's like, well, I passed a guy, passed out on a bundle of lumber out front. I was like, oh, that's him. Just go wake him up.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, look, there's a reason the government decided to put alcohol, tobacco, and firearms all in the same category, right? And that's because they belong together.
And we always did all three together. We always had the bar. I don't know, they're about to move buildings again later this year. I don't know if they're taking the bar with them, but we've always had a bar in the shop.
Yeah.
For many years, there was a loaded shotgun hanging, tombstone style inside the bar. And it was the first gun we ever made, and it was a sawed-off side-by-side shotgun. And we actually registered it. This was back when Joe Biden was vice president. We registered it in the NFA as the Uncle Joe. Because we're like, oh, he's always like, oh, just go get a shotgun. We're like, we got one right here. 10-inch barrel.
Why not? Yeah. That's funny. So, not a bad idea, by the way, to keep that around. I don't know if you see, but for some reason, I don't know if it's because he's so public media-wise, but Michael Cargill's place gets hit all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like fucking bums trying to break into like a gun store. It's like, look, I know he's really short and all, but he will kill you.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw the video, but he's like a small guy, but he body slammed the fuck out of some hobo that was trying to. He's like a fucking little gay black dude.
Man, we had when we moved to the new building, we walked outside and we had a dumpster. We had a dumpster right in front of the building because we were kind of redoing the building, cleaning it out. And there was a dude like dumpster diving or a dumpster while we were working, like some hobo, and we're like, "Fuck are you doing?" And he's like, oh, I thought this was like free. I could just take whatever I wanted. I'm like, what gave you that opinion? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that neighborhood that's right behind there is not necessarily the best thing in the world.
We've only had one real break-in at the current building, and it was a couple of years ago. And it was the house behind us was like a meth house right there making. They're making
Mike
meth there, or making something there, right?
It smelled like cat piss the whole time.
Oh, dude, they had a bunch of security cameras, and they had like a Rottweiler or something chained up in the to a tree.
If you see a house where the security system costs more than the house, there's drugs in it.
Yes.
That is a fucking hard rule in life.
To get this crazy story, this dude cuts the fence, and we used to have a guard dog. And as soon as our guard dog died, like a week later, he comes through, didn't really steal anything. Like he went to the bar and stole like a case of Topo Chico and our dish soap, like a bunch of dumb shit, right?
That's meth head shit right there.
Yeah. And so, we support SCPD. We sell, SCPD guns. So they show up and they're just crawling all over this place. Go back there, talk to them. They're like, oh, it wasn't us. And we're like, the hole's in your fence. And they're like, oh, well, someone snuck through our yard. I'm like, past the cameras and the Rottweiler? I don't think so. I'm like, you're full of shit. So about a month later, I think that street crimes unit started fucking with them on our behalf, kind of screwing with them. About a month or two later, the dude that broke into us got murdered in a firearms accident at that property, which means he was causing problems, and they killed him.
Yeah.
And then about 2 months after that, the guy that shot him, that had the firearms accident, was also killed. And now the house, some little old lady, they left, and some little old lady runs it. So they were, weren't doing their job. Their job was to make drugs and sell drugs, not, start robbing the neighbors and attracting attention to the operations. So
you just kind of got to stay in your lane, I mean,
it was like a self-licking ice cream cone. They sorted it out for themselves. So
it's very rare that there's a lot of like super active criminal investigations against people who are just selling drugs. Usually it stems from some kind of violence. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And nowadays it's human trafficking. That's the main, the big thing that they're after. So.
Yeah, especially with these cartels. It's getting rough down there. I mean, you grew up in Elotes, you said, right?
Yeah.
It's been an issue through that area for some time.
All through San Antonio. And I was actually talking to a buddy yesterday that's a federal agent, and he was telling me, he's like, man, it was actually... He's like, the one good thing during the Biden years were that a lot of the people that are being trafficked were being imported. They're coming from other countries. They're bringing them into the United States, and they're kind of like almost like a distribution network. They're coming here and they're going other places. He's like, now they can't bring them in because the border's so much tighter. So now the chances of being abducted in the States is higher.
Yeah, they're going to find product one way or the other.
So that's the one downside to shutting the border is that they got to go find them local now. So that's kind of a...
Yeah. So what was you said that your mutual friend put you guys together because you kind of had the same idea. What was the idea?
So Mike had been, he'll tell this story a lot too. He'd been building guns on his trunk and on his coffee table for people for years. And he had learned from our friend, Will Larson. He was a good friend of both of us and taught armors classes. So Mike had learned, and Mike, one of those people, he just really understands how the gun works. You know what I mean? The physics behind it, everything. And finally, the ATF caught up to him and basically told him, like, you know, you can't be doing this out of your trunk.
Well, what's the
We're gonna
rule
take
on
you to
that?
jail.
Like, do you have to? Is it like a car dealer license where if you sell more than a couple a year, you have to get a
rule
license
specifically
for it?
says if you make a business of it, you have to have a license.
Okay, I mean that's
Really open, you know.
pretty obvious that that's the case, though, right? Mike
Yeah,
just
you're
didn't give
making
a
money
shit.
on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially if you're building them. At that point, you're manufacturing, so you're definitely in the wrong. So he had to go, you know, start out on his own, but he doesn't, you know, I have an MBA, he doesn't. He didn't have anywhere to do it. So we ended up linking up, and we, like you said, we were yin and yang. We matched up. You know, he had the gun knowledge. And I had built my own guns and had pretty decent knowledge, but nowhere near what he had. But I also had an MBA and a place to do it at. So, you know, got it all set up, you know, started an LLC, sales tax, got all that stuff set up, and started to got friends to help, you know, painted that little building, you know, built some tables, you know, workbenches, and started buying tools, and had to do some shady stuff to get going. I mean, we had you know, if they're listening to this, you know, sorry, but like distributors won't open you accounts unless you have a storefront.
yeah.
So we brought all our personal guns in and basically just faked one and photoshopped a sign on the front of the building. We're like, oh, here's our gun store. And it worked, you know. Now we have full retail operation and everything. Had to build a website. Our first website was awful.
Yeah, most first websites are bad.
Complete garbage. But we sold a gun on it. That was the most exciting thing when me and Mike, the first day we sold a gun on the internet to someone we didn't know. You know, those are always like the thing where you know your business is going somewhere. Or the first time when we were at SHOT Show and we saw a guy wearing one of our shirts and we didn't know him. You know, we're like, who the hell is that guy? Do you know him? No. He's like, do you know him? No. It's just some guy that bought our shirt on the internet and decided to wear it to SHOT Show. And that's when you really like, I built something that other people believe in. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird seeing, even to this day, it's still weird for me seeing people walk around with like a fucking cartoon picture of my face on their shirt or something, or some dumbass thing I've said in quotes or something like that. It's really funny, actually. The quote part I really enjoy more than any of the product stuff. Like now we see people just send us pictures of people in the wild wearing dumb shit or drinking hard AF or anything. But my favorite, and I'm not asking you to replicate this, you assholes, by the way, but my favorite stuff was always when people would yell fucked up shit that I'd said on the show, like across airports at me. We used to tell this joke about Ross being an idiot and yelling wheelchair really loud with this old lady in a wheelchair nearby because he heard me whisper it to somebody. And for months, people would just yell wheelchair as loud as they could at me across public spaces. And I'm like, man, this is the influence I've had on the world. That's great. Good for me. It's always weird. It's weird, just to have that, I guess, parasocial relationship where people know you, but you don't know who they are necessarily.
I don't get as much of it as Mike did, but I would. You know, I'd run into people at the airport and introduce themselves, or SHOT Show. I'm walking around. There's constant people introducing themselves, and some of them I know. Other ones, you know, they know me, and I'm like, who the fuck are you? You know, like I never met you, never seen you before in my life. So I never got as much of it as he did, but it was still fun. You know.
Yeah, it is cool. And then SHOT Show is just a nice place to go get the flu.
Yes.
I fucking hate it so much.
We all got it 1 year before, and we were driving. It was the 1 year we drove.
So you're the ones that spread it to everybody at SHOT Show.
So the good thing was Mike, you know, we found a connection. A doctor gave us all Theraflu like 2 or 3 days before, and by the time we were ready to leave, we were all good. Like we got it like the week before, and we're like, oh, we're fucked. Like this, and we were gonna drive that year. We were driving a Mercedes Sprinter, which the trip up there is probably still one of the wildest road trips I've ever taken. I don't know how we're not dead. We stopped in Flagstaff, Arizona, and just got shithoused and then kept going. So it's never doing that again. It was a lot of fun. Drive back, not so much. We're all done with it at that. You know, once you're in Vegas for about 6 or 7 days, you're just done with it.
Yeah, boy. I think 3's the max.
That's about where I start wanting to go home.
So what's it like starting the gun business? Let's go from the federal licensure and then go down to the state, because you got to have a distributor as well. But distributors it's not like alcohol where it's by
we don't
state.
have to have one. Yeah. So we didn't add a distributor. So obviously you have to get 07, 02. You have to get your manufacturing license. At that point, you can literally make anything.
And this is like a full-on fucking 20-year background check, the whole thing, right?
Yes.
For all the
pictures,
principals
yeah.
on
Anybody that owns more than 20%.
Yeah.
And every time the principals change, you got to get a new license, which is a pain in the ass.
God, I don't think it's like that for the booze industry.
No, it's not.
I think it's one time. Fuck, every time it changes, you got to get.
Yeah, if
somebody goes from 19 to 20,
you got to add them.
even if it's like vested, like I'm the CEO of the company, I already own 15%.
They'll let you,
and I'm on a 5% 5-year option, and I vest at 5 years, and now we got to relicense the
they
whole
might
goddamn
let you get
company.
away with going till it expires again, but once you expire, then you got to add them, and then you get a new number.
Bitch,
Yeah,
dude.
it's a pain in the ass.
What is the point of that? Like
They just want to make sure there's
the
people,
substantials haven't changed, right?
They just want to make sure there's not nobody in there that has access to it, basically, because you're what they call you is a responsible person.
Yeah.
So they don't want to have people in there that are, we had the cartels approach us to buy guns a couple times. We had to turn them over to the DHS or whoever. They fake it really well too. They had all the paperwork. They had everything. It was
how
crazy.
does that? What was that like?
They came. So we had just started exporting, and they came in. They're like, "Oh, we're taking bids for the Mexican Army National Guard or something like that." And we're like, "Oh, that's a thing." Yeah. And we got all these like really legit looking paperwork, and there's a general calling you and all this stuff. So we called in a consultant we had, and she got on the phone with them and started asking them like questions. What is a Form 100? What is all this stuff that you have to make to do an export? And they didn't know what any of it was. And we're like, she's like, "Yeah, this is not legit." So she started calling around, and we found out that they had reached out to multiple people, just trying to find one of them stupid enough to do it. So
I'm sure they probably ran into somebody at some point.
At some point, yeah. So we ended up calling the ATF for like, "Hey, here's everything we have. Like, we're not going to talk to these people anymore. Y'all deal with it." But yeah, back to your question. Yeah, so license, you don't have to have a distributor on the gun side. We self-distributed for 5-6 years, just sold direct. And it started buy a couple guns, shit, buy anything. At the beginning, to the point where to become a dealer for us, you had to be buying $100,000 a year, which is kind of where it got to, which is pretty standard in the industry for Staccato, some of these bigger accounts.
Yeah.
And then we added RSR as our first distributor. That was a big deal when we picked up our first distributor. Actually, they're back Crow Brownells is our first distributor. They're a little smaller, but RSR is number 1 or number 2 in the United States, depending on who you ask. And that quickly went from a $300,000 account to $3 million account in a year. Did really, really well with them. And then we ended up adding other ones. We added Sports South, which is once again number 1 or number 2. Depending on who you're looking for. So just distribution, and there's some people that don't think distribution is the answer. Since I've been gone, Sons of Liberty's kind of pulled back from the distribution model a little bit and tried to push harder into the direct dealer. My not predecessor, the guy that came after me that's running the company now came from Staccato. Successor, there we go. Came from Staccato, and they didn't have distribution. They're direct to dealer only. That's the only way they do it. So that he's kind of moved it that way. But in the AR space, you kind of have to be in distribution because all the big companies are, and if you're not, you're missing a big piece of the pie. Especially on parts. If you got gun shops, some people are like, why have distribution? Like, some people don't want 10 guns and 10 bolt carrier groups and 10 triggers. They want one.
Yeah.
Or there's a guy walking in off the street. They're like, they don't carry Sons of Liberty, but I really want this gun. They can go on distribution and get it.
Yeah.
Had
you guys ever run into any issues during any of the supply chain issues with getting parts and stuff like that? What was that like? Do you use any aluminum? Because aluminum was a problem for a while.
Yes. So on AR, the receivers and the rail are all aluminum. It's really the only charging handle. There's a few aluminum parts. The rest for the most part, steel. The buffer tube. We would the raw materials on the aluminum side. The price would become a problem. We'd get price increases. Getting it was never the issue. Our main issue was always we held everything to after the last 6, 7, 8 years we've been designing all our own parts. We'd have engineers that, would do the drawings for us. We had one main guy that would do it. And we held everything to very high standards, tolerances. We use what's called bright dip Cerakote, which is, not Cerakote, bright dip anodizing, which is difficult. Not a lot of places do. There's only about 2 or 3 places in the U.S. that even do it. So
why is it so difficult?
You have to dip the parts in hydrochloric acid. And most places, like the Anno plant we used here in San Antonio, didn't want to do it because they're like, the fumes of that crap will melt your building over time. Not only that, the TCQ, all the...
You got to have a scrubber.
The waste trail for it is insane.
Yeah.
So we had to basically use one place in Washington State for everything. And they're now owned by Leupold, so that was a whole other problem. It's like are we still going to be able to use them now that Leupold owns this anodizing plant? So that was always an issue, and mainly the tolerance thing. It was hard to find shops to do work for us that would hold that level of tolerance. You know, we'd reach out to shops all the time and get samples of parts, and they just weren't up to snuff. And a lot of the bigger volume manufacturers that are making parts for the Colts of the world, you know, the FNs of the world that are cranking out 10,000 receivers a month, even if they could hold that tolerance, they have no issue. They have no interest in doing it for you. They got plenty of business.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't want to make us 2,000 or 3,000 receivers and go make FN 10,000, or, you know, I'm not calling out FN. They make really nice guns, but you know what I mean? Like, they're just not held. There's very few in the industry that are held to the level of tolerance that we did.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but in the, let's say 2008 to 2012 range, EOTech started having a bunch of problems with their equipment because there were people had seen them in the G-Wide on television and shit, and they're like, oh, I need one of those. So they started selling them commercially, and they were making a fuck ton of money. The problem is, and this is something that I wanted to ask you about too, because maintaining a high level of standard is a real problem when you're scaling.
Yes.
When you're dealing with, I mean, a Colt M4 is one thing. If anybody that's been in the military or even fired one, you can hold it like this, like by the buttstock, and kind of move it, and you can feel it wobbling back and forth, right? There's a lot of give in those things, so whatever, right? It's designed that way to take to the desert. You can put sand and shit in there, and it'll still kind of operate okay. Sons of Liberty rifles are precisely manufactured.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if you've ever seen any of the videos on the internet, but they have a Santa's workshop in there with little fucking nerds hammering away all day, like the fucking elves. And everything, there's micrometers all over the place, and it's very precise. And now I gave them to some of my tier 1 buddies, and they were like, I don't know if this will work in the sand. And I was like, take it to the sand.
Oh, it's been they've been there now. So yeah. We just, you know, like I said, that was one of the last things I did on the way out was win that SOCOM contract. So they're definitely in the sand now, and plenty of. But
it was a bit of a conversation to get them to even try it, to believe.
That's the hard thing in the gun. You know, there's so many proven brands out there, and just people got to trust you, and that's when we really hit critical mass started growing. Was when people started to trust us, law enforcement. You know, we got to the point where they were calling us. They had heard that we made amazing guns, and they lasted forever.
Yeah, but it was like, I remember the first time I showed one to some Delta guys, and they were like, man, there's no wiggle room in this gun. How's it going to operate in conditions? I'm like, why don't you, here's Mike. He'll send you some and you use them. And I guess it all worked out.
Yeah.
Because here we are today. But that's a problem with scaling, is maintaining that standard. If you're going to be that precise, it has to be precise and resistant to the elements as well. And then there's also the financial part of scaling that motherfucker, right? That's not easy. Yeah. You like, in theory, you get price breaks, right? As you buy more stuff.
Not as much as you would think. It's a few points maybe.
Yeah, it's one, it's minimal, and two, from manufactured from AR or from AP to AR is a window, 90 to 120 days, which means I got to have enough cash to spend right now that I won't see for 4 months. The return at a minimum, right?
Yeah, what we had done during COVID, when everybody was scrambling for product, we went to our biggest customers and we took them from 30 days down to 15. We're like, hey, if you get us the money faster, and we started getting them discounts to pay us in like 7. We're like, you get us the money faster, we can give you product faster, because they were selling everything they could possibly get during the COVID years. So that we kind of had to push them back up to 30, but we stuck with that for a long time, and that helped. But you're not. One thing that kind of good and bad for us, we had a lot of models of guns. We made at the beginning very custom guns. We wanted to be the answer for anything you needed on the AR. We made everything from 9-inch 300 blackouts to 18, 20-inch 5.56s. We made 308s, Creedmoors. I mean, our new cartridge 6 Max.
Yeah, that's Grindles. A 300 right there from probably 4 years ago.
Yeah, we made it all. And the new 300s they're working on right now are going to be incredible. I can't really talk a lot about them, but Mike's working on some really cool stuff for that. And the supply chain was just hell to manage. I mean, you had 10, 15 different kinds of barrels.
Yeah.
All these rail lengths. We had 3 different levels of guns. They still do. The XO, the L89, the Mark 1. The parts, the receivers for all of them are different. We had broadsword, which I don't know if you've ever seen that, where we push the grip back about half an inch.
Yeah.
So that was always a really, and it costs a lot of money. And that
Yeah.
you know,
Holding that much inventory in general costs money. You also don't want to be the Cheesecake Factory. You don't want to have a menu that's too big because you can't be great at that many things. It's
and we had
impossible.
started to cut it down, and my successor cut it down even farther. I think they cut it down quite a bit to make it a little easier.
Yeah, that's good because when you're doing like once you start a company and it's not even a company, it's just a couple of dudes fucking doing shit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you start looking at logistics and stuff, and either you personally or somebody that's really good at supply chain comes and looks at it. And that's when you become a real company, in my opinion. Because it's like even the size of the box that you ship your shit in matters. Because everything costs money, and every additional expenditure cuts into your net revenue. Right?
Yeah, that's what I find crazy when you see Amazon and you're getting like a can of hard AF and a box that's like this big. It's
Yeah,
like,
that doesn't make.
the
Well,
hell?
the reason they do it is because it costs less money to either just use what's there or use a box that doesn't fit and paper than it does to have a bunch of different, because they're cutting their own boxes.
Yeah.
They have instead of using, like for Black Rifle, when we ordered box, we had to order it from somebody, right?
Yeah.
So they have these CNC machines, and they show us exactly what the cuts look like, where the logos are going to go, all this
yeah,
stuff.
we had to do that quite a bit. Yeah, we use a
Yeah.
company called Diamond
Yeah,
Corrugated.
Diamond
They're really
Core,
good.
that we use them too in San Antonio.
Oh, do you
for a
really?
little bit.
Yeah,
like
dude.
I don't know about if they use them anymore, but back in the day we used them a bit.
John was a good dude.
Yeah, they were really good. So that's a whole thing too, right? That's a whole like if the more of my SKUs that I can put into the exact same box, the more of that box I can buy, the cheaper I get it.
And that's what we do. Like our rifle box was huge. You know, it's
Yeah.
4 foot long, but it would fit any gun we had.
Yeah.
And that's something we were working on towards the end. We shipped every gun in a soft case.
Mm.
I was a big proponent of keeping that. You know, you could pull the gun out, and only thing you need to put on is an optic or sights, and you're
Yeah.
ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah.
We shipped the gun with 3 mags. We're like one of the few that do that.
And a Constitution.
Yes, Constitution stickers, all sorts of stuff. You know, fired case, but we went away from the soft case just because the price had gotten ridiculous. I mean, even like a cheapo China soft case had gotten to $20.
Yeah,
and
it's
like,
weird.
Yeah, it had gotten kind of nuts. And then we thought about it. We're like, anybody actually using this thing past the first couple days they have the gun, they're going to go buy a nicer case.
Yes.
So why give them something they're just going to throw away?
Yeah.
So we got into stuff like that. But same thing, yeah, rifle box. We only ever had one big one, and we tried to keep. You know, one of the big things I was working. You know, I had just gotten done was renegotiating our contract with UPS, talking about saving 6 figures a year, just renegotiating it and then figuring out how to do it smarter. You know, the UPS has this thing where you can ship a certain number of boxes for pallet price. So we were working on that, and we were working on getting our suppliers to do it too, getting them to run off our contract because our pricing was better. Was always a fight. It's a little extra step on their end, but saves everybody money. They're passing through that freight cost to us, so we might as well try to save them a little money. All that sort of stuff. The flow inside the shop, you know, the logistic flow on how to pack things the right way without getting in each other's way. You know, we had just redone the shop to try to improve the flow, but we always ran into trouble. We just didn't have enough space in that building. You know, we were operating out of, including our connexes and offices, 12, 13,000 square feet, but that main building was only 8. So trying to ship everything out of about 2,000 square feet was a major hurdle most of the time.
So what are some, when you guys started to scale, what were some of the challenges, I guess? You know,
People's always a big one. You know, I've heard you touch on that in other episodes is hiring your friends, which we did, not necessarily friends, but like Dylan, he came in and just wouldn't leave. So we started paying him eventually. Turned out to be a great employee, but we had a lot of people like that where we would just, they had to learn into their job. They started as the shipping guy and ended up being the director of operations after 4 or 5 years, making almost 6 figures. And we had several like that, and it worked out really well. And one thing me and Mike always said was we hired off a culture, we had hired off a fit, not necessarily skills, which in retrospect is really good for certain jobs, but for the higher level jobs, you eventually have to go hire people that know what the fuck they're doing. We had to we hired a sales director. That was our first big outside hire when we hired Will Phoebus about 6 years ago, and he's no longer with us. He's with no longer with the company. He's not dead. He's with GBRS now.
GBRS is great.
Yeah. So Will's the director of GBRS. He got spun off after I left. But hiring people like him, Chris Greenfield, who's now with Ridgeline, was doing our website stuff. We hired him off BTO. Having to go out and actually hired Scott Peterson to do research and development when he got out of the AMU. Hiring people that really knew what the hell they were doing. They might have been friends, they might have been people we knew, but they actually had the experience to bring in and teach us things. It wasn't us teaching them how to do the job; they were teaching us how to do that facet of the business better.
Sure, yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. I mean, as a founder, your job should be to try to work yourself back into your core competency and hire people to backstop shit that are actual professionals at that thing. You know what I mean? Like, I can do marketing and I can do media, but when it comes to designing products and shit like that, I'm just winging it. I'm guessing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it comes to logistics, I'm figuring it out, but I would rather have somebody that can see the tea leaves. Like, they're looking at a spreadsheet and all that shit makes sense to them, and they know where to move something to amplify my message or amplify my production or amplify my distribution. You know what I mean? That should always be your goal as a founder of a company, is to get the fuck out of the way.
And that's this other thing too, is the first thing, the thing you're the worst, you're the worst at should be the first thing you outsource. Outsource things in the order that you're not good at them. If you're not good at human resources or you're not good at financing and doing the books, outsource it. Like, I have an MBA. I hate doing bookkeeping. I can do it. I don't want to do it. And that's always the first thing. I go hire a fractional bookkeeper to do that.
These days it's so cheap, like fucking
$40 an hour. Yeah,
$3-4 grand a month maybe for fractional bookkeeping. If you're like we do a lot of.
Well, for Sons of Liberty size company, I would have been a few grand.
We're doing a lot of logistics. It's not that much money, to be honest. It's way less than we would be paying a fucking employee to do that. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
And they're on call too, which is nice. I've enjoyed that process quite a bit. And we did that at Black Rifle too. I mean, when I first got there, I think there were like technically 13 employees, but some of them were people that were doing our fulfillment, and we moved back to a fulfillment company after that. Yeah. So it was pretty small still. And then, we started picking off finance people from Fanatics and stuff like that, and this guy from this company and this guy from this company, and you could see the business start to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you work with people and you're like, we need to go hire someone like that, or just go hire that person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go steal them.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the thing you want to do, is try to steal somebody. And then, you eventually, just like all companies, it evolves over time, and you're trying to manage it so it evolves into something that you want it to be still. And you can get out of your hands sometimes too. So that is what it is. But the thing about starting a business is, I don't know anybody that's only ever started one. Right.
That's kind of what got us, not got us in trouble at Sons of Liberty. Sons of Liberty is doing awesome, but we started a clothing company.
Yeah.
TWC, which is now shut down for the most part.
Yeah.
And then we got off into, we bought an M4 carbine, we bought a Forum. And that's, in retrospect, probably should have made either of those moves, but, they're both gone now. So that's, should have stuck with what we're good at.
Yeah, but you've got something new going on now.
Yeah. So, like I said, I stayed on Sons of Liberty through about May or June of last year, helping them out after Nate took over in February. Still help them out. They need something. They call me everything was in my name. I set everything up. I was the one person that knew how everything worked. So I occasionally get a call to fix something, but they're off on their own now. So my current new business partner, Clint, reached out, and he worked for Sons of Liberty like 10 years ago as a Cerakoter, before he started his own shop. And he got into doing more OEM high volume work. So if you go look at like HK, like they had an anniversary gun last year, MR556, that had it was sand with like a digi camo pattern lasered in. He did all those for him. So he does big jobs, hundreds of guns, and he had a network of dealers around the San Antonio area that were supposed to be feeding him jobs. There were pickup locations for him. If someone needed Cerakote, they could drop it off there and he'd pick it up. What he found though, and I went, after he told me this, I went and talked to other friends that kind of had the same model, and they all had the same problem, was that these dealers weren't feeding them here and there. They'd get a job, right? But for the most part, the dealers didn't know how to price it. They didn't know anything about Cerakote. The newer employees, they didn't want to train employees to know about it. And it just wasn't worth their time to screw with it. At best, if it's a good customer, they might take the order in, or most of the time it was like, here's this guy's business card, go call him, kind of thing, right? And maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe they forget about it. So we wanted to find a way to, and Clint had thought of this idea to design a kiosk that goes in the shop that does it all. You know, you select your firearm type, you can select your colors, your patterns, you see what you get. And, you know, his original thought,
I mean, it's like one of those sliders on the video games, like on
Yeah.
Call of Duty, where you get to choose the skins for your fucking
Exactly.
weapon, right?
and he wanted to do that for himself. And I told him, I'm like, no, hell with that. Do it for everybody.
Yeah.
And let's build a network of vendors. You know what I mean? We bring in vendors as well. They'll pay us a monthly fee, but they get business out of this kiosk as well. And the customer gets to pick the vendors. So they see a gallery of images, just like they would on Cerakote's website, ratings, price ranges, you know, whether the customer picks up, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, the system filters it down to the vendors that can do the job because they can opt out of doing.
Right.
Some vendors don't want to do optics, you know, don't want to do suppressors. A lot of them don't want to do Yeti cups because it's not worth it. You get paid $40 to, you know, Cerakote a cup.
Yeah.
So they pick the vendor, they pay us, we collect all the money, and we split it up in the back end. So you've got, at this point, the dealer's motivated to have this kiosk in their shop because they're making 15% on the job and they're capturing it immediately without someone getting out of there. And man, you can just buy a gun, turn around, Cerakote it, and you know, once you pay the kiosk, all you do is hand it over to the guy behind the counter, and the system prints out the packing list, prints out the FFL, the vendor, prints out everything they need, and they ship it off. And another step in there too, they can make a little additional money because they can also, some of the guns require disassembly. So that's a step in the system is like, hey, is the gun disassembled? And the dealer has to say yes or no.
Yeah.
And if it's not, they can put in a disassembly charge if they want to take the thing apart and put it back together when it comes back.
Yeah, I mean, so our buddy Brian Ware has a company kind of like this called One Day Wraps. He's out in Southern California somewhere, but the company is vehicle wrapping. But they do all sorts of different wraps as well.
Yeah.
But it has something like that. You can either come with your own design that's fitted to a vehicle, or you can have one of them design it, and it enters a marketplace that finds a place closest to you that can actually do the job.
Kind of like Angie's List. Yeah, go find
Similar to that, yeah, but it's like with it's bespoke stuff design wise, which is more along the lines of what you're talking about. And I could see that working in a myriad of different ways. Forget about, I mean, Cerakoting is something for sure, and it's a specialized process. You got to have somebody that knows what they're doing. But just thinking of because of the type of business it is, all the potential upsells that you could do with that. Like, here's my upper and lower, I want it Cerakoted, but while you're at it, here's all the parts I want. Buy them through your vendor and assemble that motherfucker and send it back to me ready to go.
And that's something we're looking at doing. So it'll definitely have laser engraving out of the box for sure. You know, we'd looked at putting stippling just on, you know, polymer frame guns in there.
But even like putting on optics and fucking milling everything out.
Yeah,
you could do eventually.
That's probably
you
the
know
next
what I mean?
step is looking at doing slide cuts and things like that and threading.
And then you're doing deals with the manufacturers of those parts as well, which makes you get preferential treatment when you're going direct to dealers and folding them into your natural business. Typically, you get like you're first in line to get stuff because they know that sale is automatically going out to the consumer already, right? Yeah. So their fucking hands are clean, and that thing's out in the marketplace now.
We've looked at a lot of really cool ways to take it. You know, another place we want to take it. Cerakote's really big also in Harleys and motorcycles. You know, Cerakoting pipes and gas tanks, and you know, there's a lot of parts in the bike you can Cerakote. So possibly taking it that realm, you know, taking it to ATVs. You know, there's a lot of different industry. Take it to full custom guns. Be a slight redesign, but there's definitely ways you can take it into full custom guns. The only reason we kind of stayed away from that out of the get-go is now you're looking at possibly using two vendors. You know, it gets a little more complicated because most Cerakoters don't necessarily build guns or sell parts or do slide cuts or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we were like, let's do the things we know we can get one vendor to do or easily outsource. And then once you start getting into that other stuff, then you're like, well, now it gets a little more complicated, you know? But it's definitely something we want to look at. And once the systems mature, really just changing the databases and the information, the choices in there is really all you got to do. And you can turn it into anything. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be about getting guns Cerakoted, right?
No, we're going to put knives and swords and cups and bows and arrows and sunglasses and flamethrowers and whatever we can think of, we're going to put it in there.
I think gas tanks on Harleys are pretty common, right, for Cerakoting.
Gas tanks on the pipes too, because they have coatings that'll dissipate heat rapidly until they cool down. Like
that's probably a pretty narrow field that people that actually know how to do that, right?
Yeah, and that's something we'll have to do is we'll have to on the vendor side, we'll have to have them, can you do this? And that's kind of where my partner comes in. He knows, can vet the vendors, but
Yeah.
it'll limit the vendors, but there's a lot of them that can do that. And the cool thing is once the gun shop has us in their shop, we can add additional modules to it to build guns, or hell, bring your gas tank. We can add the Harley module into a gun shop. We probably wouldn't charge them any extra for it. Bring your gas tank into your local gun shop and have it painted, Car parts can technically be gun painted, but most shops can't handle it because of the size. I know at Sons of Liberty, we did a motorcycle wheel once for like a chopper, and I swear that wheel was like 36 inches, something like that. It was huge. We had to build a fixture just to sandblast.
Well, how does Cerakoting work?
So
Is it dipped or something, or is it sprayed? How's it work?
It's sprayed. So you blast it down, you degrease it, blast it down, and then you spray it, and then most of the coatings go into an oven. But there also is an air dried version, and doesn't really make a lot of sense, but the high heat coatings are typically air dry. So you just let it air dry. That stuff you put on suppressors and stuff like that is an air dry coating. So if you got a big enough thing where you can't stick it in an oven, then you have to use an air dry, or you have to buy a bigger oven. I mean, they make ovens the size of this room if you want it. But most places use it's called a Shell Lab oven, which is about the size of a refrigerator.
How much does that fucking thing cost?
About $4,000.
Oh, that's not bad. No. What's the big one cost?
Man, I don't even know.
Because like a fucking a paint booth, like for cars, a big ass paint booth has an oven inside it as well. I don't think it would get to the temperature necessary to cure.
It's actually not that high. It probably would, yeah. To cure Cerakote is not that. I mean, you're talking a couple hundred degrees.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you use the oven inside of a paint booth to cure the clear coat. Yeah. At the last stage.
And that would, I know some guys do that. Our best Cerakoter at Sons of Liberty was a car painter. We hired him off a plate. We had to pay him a lot, but he's really good at both. So you definitely could, it's guys that specialize in that side of things. Oil. There's a lot of oil field components we did at Sons of Liberty. We were doing clamps and stuff, and valves and things like that.
Is that for aesthetic or for function?
For corrosion resistance. So Cerakote is highly corrosion resistant. The oven baked version.
So there are a bunch of Cerakote companies out in West Texas. Then I didn't know that.
I don't know if there is. I don't know if it's really
seems like a good business to start. Just have some dude walk around.
If you got the connections for it, definitely.
Like if you've got the data on it, like hey, your part's going to last X amount longer, and here's how much it costs to replace that bitch, and here's how much it costs to Cerakote.
Cerakote's not that expensive.
No,
really
it's not.
Isn't.
I mean, I'm looking these large scale paint booths are like fucking at the high end $25,000. That's affordable if you're going to be able to get business. Shit.
Yeah, especially if we're doing car parts. Like my business partner's real good friends with Goldberg, the wrestlers, and an investor in this new company, and they were Cerakoting car parts, hoods and doors and stuff for him, bumpers, things like that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, no, you can do some really cool stuff, and it's highly corrosion resistant, highly abrasion resistant. The air dry coating is a little less abrasion resistant, but the glacier coat can go up to I think 2,200 degrees or something like that.
Oh wow,
yeah, it's crazy.
That's the air dry.
Yeah.
2,200. I guess that's good if you're going to put it on a suppressor.
Yeah, suppressor, or they originally had the original C series, and now they have the Glacier, which is like the even higher end one.
Yeah.
And Cerakote they also have a powder coating company, so we may take this kiosk technology to powder coating.
Powder coating is the one where they use electricity to fucking.
Yeah, and it's a lot thicker. You can't use on guns. I mean, it's Cerakote's thin. It's only about at max 2 mils. Unless you start layering colors, But on powder coatings, I think 4, 5, 6 mils, it's thicker.
They used to use powder coating for aluminum baseball bats back in the day.
It's big on aluminum stuff. A lot of your pipe, header, a lot of engine parts and stuff that they're aluminum. Your
like
cold air intake tubes and stuff like that are going to be powder coated.
Yeah. Those bright red carburetors. That's not spray paint on there.
No,
that would melt immediately.
Yeah, I mean, you see a little more anodizing. It's funny, the firearms industry has been really behind the times on materials and coatings.
Yeah, you said anodyne isn't as common with some of the bigger manufacturers, but
they use it, but not bright dip. They use just basic duller, like kind of looks like a laptop, like a duller black. I mean, ours was shiny. It was the only way to get shiny, but you had to dip it in acid.
And that's the whole thing. Again, not only just like getting the acid in the first place. I'm certain that's a regulated.
Oh yeah, the waste trail and all that is a pain.
Yeah, from nose to tail, that's regulated. Then you got to have a scrubber on site for the air. Otherwise, it's gonna fucking get like everybody's gonna die.
And the only reason we got big, if you look like at a Leupold optic, it's kind of shiny black like that. That company did it for Leupold for so long. Leupold eventually bought them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, a lot of bigger companies buy up their supply chain as they get larger, which is smart, to be honest, because then not to teach you how to cheat the IRS or anything, but you should always be looking to cheat the IRS because taxes are gay. You can have a parent company that owns all these companies, buy from one of the companies that you own inside of that, and it's still a write-off,
Yeah.
right? Even though you own both companies. So
Yeah, too. When I was going through grad school, they always tell you to try to maximize the profit of the company at the end of the chain. You know what I mean? That's
yeah.
always the
And then
the
write
plan.
off everything down below. Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
it doesn't matter if the ones above you in the vertical integration really make a whole lot of money as long as the one at the
Yep,
bottom one
that's
does.
right. Yep. Yeah, that's what Trump was talking about in the 2016 debates with Hillary. Like, I know that you're not going to close these loopholes because all your friends use them, because I
they're
use
so
them
corrupt,
as well.
dude. Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're never going to stop. It's like the tax code was written to confuse middle class people.
All these people that are like, oh, Trump didn't pay any taxes. I'm like, that makes him a really good businessman. If he didn't pay any taxes.
Like, what are you trying to pay more taxes? What are you talking about?
I read some article by a CPA a while back, and he's like, my job is to not cheat the government, but I forget what word he used. But he's like, my job is to not pay taxes.
It's
like,
to
for my
protect the client from.
Yeah, that is my
paying
job.
taxes.
Pay as
Yeah,
little
that's-
tax as possible, and it's the government's job to make me pay as many taxes as possible, and it's just a constant back and forth of that, you know.
Yeah. There's a lot of new tech coming out. Have you guys? Is there any like AI factory stuff that's going to be integrated into any of the stuff you're doing now, or is that like, because you don't control the Cerakoting process itself, but you've dealt with it. Is there anything coming AI wise in guns or Cerakoting?
They've gotten bigger in AI on the lasering side of it for sure. So my partner's big on him. He's got a Tykma laser, which is huge.
I bet the stippling too, right?
Yeah, a lot of it. It's still not really AI, but there's a lot more computerized. You know, now you don't have to stencil colors. Now you can, lay 3 colors on top of a gun and then laser out the pattern.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
We were looking into integrating AI into the kiosk a little bit, but it gets a little more complicated when AI has a habit to just make shit up. If it doesn't,
it does. Yeah.
it'd be almost designing our own Cerakote engine because the pricing's tied into which parts are Cerakoting and what colors are putting on them. So it's got to be like in a matrix. It's got to be really defined. It can't just be.
Yeah.
That's one thing the owner of Cerakote, Brian, had brought up. He's like, why don't you use AI for that and you'll get better images? I'm like, yeah, but the pricing and all this shit on the back end would get fucked up.
Then you're gonna have to hire somebody to fucking unwind all the nonsense.
Yeah, I'm sure you've used AI. I've done it used Gamma for different things for different uses, and you always got to really check it because if it doesn't know the answer, it just makes it the fuck up.
Yeah. I use it for research a lot.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what you just said is not real. I was researching battles during the Global War on Terror, actually, and it assigned a Medal of Honor recipient to a battle that they were never in. I'm like, I had to correct him. Like, that's not right, bro. You gotta.
Yeah, if it's like in a battle, if it doesn't know how many people died, he'll just make it up. 377, whatever. Like, that's not right.
Yeah, it's effective at some stuff. The robotic stuff, though, for manufacturing is getting pretty good. There's this company called Felix Units in Munich, and it's a startup, and they've developed a fucking hydraulic forklift that's 2 independent lifts that have lasers on them that find the gap and then drive into it by themselves and then fucking lift the thing up. So you can program it to like, and again, the point of it is everything's still got to be measured out the correct way because it's robotics and it's not it's not actually intelligent the way that we think.
You still have to program it correctly.
Yeah. So everything has to be in the right place. It's kind of like our buddy Zach, Millennial Farmer, told us about how he's using it up in Minnesota to farm. They use it to track all of the fields, like the rotational farming.
Yeah.
Right. And the mineral counts, all that stuff. And then when it comes, when you're off season, you drive through and you put nitrogen stems, like pellets or whatever, down into the ground to fertilize the ground.
Bounce it out, yeah.
Yeah. And then you're able to track it and then come back during planting season and put the plant right there, like literally in the exact same spot without putting stakes in the ground or any of that bullshit. It maps the whole thing out. For what you guys are doing, I think, do you know Bill Thompson, Spartan Forge? Spartan Forge would probably be more along those lines because Spartan Forge is AI hunting software. It tracks like game herds, wind patterns, weather patterns,
that's cool.
all that shit, and tells you where the best place to set up for. Like if you only got a weekend, maybe 2 weekends a year to go do your hunting, you want to kill some shit so you can put stuff in your freezer.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so it tells you precisely
I'm going to check that out.
how to get a fucking good hunt in. And then he's got another thing on the back end. It's a an LLM, large language model, kind of like GPT or any of these, but it's designed specifically for our community, hunting, guns, all that shit. So it'll actually answer your questions. Like if you want to know how to build a fucking SOP mod 4 or something like that, it'll give you the exact directions on how to do it without any of the woke nonsense. Like, oh, you shouldn't fucking use firearms or whatever the stupid thing says. But
trying to give you some moral lesson while you're trying to just, you're like I'm already past that stage. Leave me alone.
Yeah, but it's drawing from a repository of the actual hunting space, the actual gun business, and
That's
stuff
really
like
cool.
that.
I'll check that out.
So it might be really useful for what you guys are doing, not just there, but at Sons of Liberty too.
Yeah.
To be honest, you definitely. I'll hook you up with Bill, but that company's great. So what do you guys? We got to get out of here in a second. But what are you guys doing next? What's up next? Like, what's the next step for customization station?
So we'll have a fully operational. We'll be at SHOT Show. We won't really be letting people play with it just yet. We're going to be at the Sons of Liberty gave it up. It's now the GBRS party at the Leatherneck, the opening party for SHOT. It's an awesome party. If you're there, go.
I won't be, but I've been to Leather. I've done parties. The Scout Sniper Foundation always does a party.
With Brian, with those guys. Yeah. No, he's usually there too on Mondays.
Yeah.
Great dude. And we'll be there. We'll probably have it on a tablet. We can kind of demo it. We're making a demo video. We're just getting to the point where it's kind of interactive. It's kind of, doing what it's supposed to do because we have 7 full-time developers working on this because we're moving fast on it. So probably by mid-March, we'll have it in beta testing. We'll have it in a bunch of shops around San Antonio. You can go check it out. We'll have a locator on the website so you can see where they're at. And then we're hoping beta testing only takes a few weeks. If we do our job right and there's going to be issues, but get to the point and there's not any major problems with it.
Yeah, if the system's not crashing.
Yeah.
You're good.
That's the main thing. We just, I'm going to have one in the house. I'm just going to sit there and just play with it till I break it.
Yeah.
That's basically what beta testing is, just find the flaws. But yeah, if we can get that done by April, our plan is, I've typically been anti-rep groups. That's a big thing. The gun industry is rep groups. You know what I mean? Typically not been my thing. Haven't had great experiences with them in the past. Hired a couple, had to fire them. But we think this product lends itself really well to a rep group. So we're going to be going out all over the United States trying to put, we want to put one of these in every gun shop in the United States. I mean, imagine if you have a gun shop in Junction, Texas, like you don't even know where the nearest Cerakoter is.
Yeah.
But this is a new revenue stream you can bring on. Big box stores, Bass Pro, we can get out there and put one of these in stores that have never offered customization and would never even think about it because they don't want to train their employees. They don't want to mess around with it. But this way they pay a small monthly fee and your monthly fee doesn't go up if you do more jobs. We're just charging you.
Yeah.
We're taking a small cut for credit card processing and stuff. But otherwise, if you do 30, 40, 50 jobs a month, that's all pure profit on your point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's definitely scalable at no cost to the end user. So
yeah, and we're giving them the hardware for free. That's our main cost right now. Is just we're going to be supplying them the kiosks, basically looks like a big computer screen. We'll be providing the hardware for free for the first year or two. Kind of like Sound Shop did it. You used to be able to get a Sound Shop kiosk for free.
Yeah,
not anymore. Now they're $5,000.
Yeah.
But we're going to make it as easy as possible for gun shops to pick this up, and even the shops that do Cerakote in-house, this is a robotic employee that'll price the jobs for him for $200 a month. It's a lot cheaper than paying somebody on the counter how to do it. You just, hey, if you need Cerakote, go over here to this machine and they'll knock it out for you. And I can keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, that's the digital model too. The longer you can keep somebody in your store, which is why every social media platform prioritizes internal links. Right?
Yeah, just like on podcasts. I know when we had our own, me and Mike had our own. We only did like 20 episodes, but we figured out if we post a link to it on Facebook and say as a podcast, or we even in the intro to the podcast it said pod. Now I'm messing yours up for this one because I'm saying it like 8 times.
That doesn't matter for us.
But it listens to it.
Yeah.
And it kind of reduces your exposure because it knows you're going to take it off the platform. You're going to YouTube or Spotify or somewhere else.
Yeah.
So.
The easiest trick to that is just to post a clip native to the platform and then in the first comment put the link out.
That's smart. Yeah.
That's the only way you can really defeat that. But it's an easy way to defeat it. It kind of sucks that it does that, but I understand why you would prioritize your own product. I'm not going to fault somebody for that.
Yeah, you gotta. Everybody needs to eat, right? So you gotta find ways to get around it. Yeah. It's not like we're not going to be using Facebook, and I'm on that shit all day long. It's not like we're not using it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, been very eye-opening in some of this stuff today. I like the conversation about working your way through growing businesses and whatnot. Tell everybody where they can find you and where they can find the new product if it's out there yet.
Yeah, we're on Instagram. We got it. We're going to start putting stuff out on Instagram. This might be the first thing we put out on Instagram. Actually, is whenever this goes live. But we're on. You look up Customization Station on Instagram, Facebook. We got a website, and all that's getting built. And most of it will be running by SHOT Show time. So we'll be at SHOT Show. Kind of wandering around. I'm easy to spot. So
are you guys at a booth, or you just?
No, we had reached out. We had a long meeting with Cerakote, but I think it'd be a next year thing. They want it fully 110%.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're behind us. They're supporting the project. They've been helping us with some technical data and stuff we needed on colors and things like that. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, Cerakote's a great company. All those guys are cool.
Yeah.
That's why they've dominated that industry for so long.
Oh, dude, Brian, the owners
great people and great product.
Yeah, they're great. We've been working with Daniel and Jason and the owner Brian over there.
For like
they're
10 years probably. Shit.
Yeah, they've been there forever, and they're great people. So
good. Well, thanks for coming today, man. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me on, man. It was fun.
For sure. Everybody, this will be out tomorrow, by the way.
Oh,
so
badass.
Wednesday. Customization Station, check it out. Check out Sons of Liberty Gunworks. That's the rifle that you always see me carrying. It's the best. They make the best rifles in the business, in my opinion. And I think the government's starting to agree with me on that, to be honest.
They're slowly coming around.
They were skeptical, but I'm not getting into details on that, but they're less skeptical now. How about that?
Yes.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming today, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yep. Thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.